Hello, fellow nerds, and welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing. Today we have a very special guest, author Sara Schaller. Sara is an author and publishing professional who lives in Colorado. She loves the world of pop culture and the performing arts, so when she's not reading or writing, she's either watching movies and shows, attending conventions, or going out to see live performances. She likes to write stories for all ages in the fantasy genre, and her writing usually contains elements of speculative fiction and features a large cast of characters. Sara has a bachelor's degree in English, art history, and religious studies from the University of Denver and a master's degree in publishing from Pace University. Welcome to the podcast, Sara.
That's
Thank you for
awesome.
being
Yeah.
here.
That was a really cool intro.
I know.
I mean,
Yeah, thank you.
degree in art history.
Yeah.
If you lived close to us, we'd probably be friends.
I'm also
Yes.
drooling over your bookshelves behind you.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
gorgeous.
So cool.
I was gonna say, yeah, if you can't tell that I'm a nerd from the bio, like you could
Right.
just tell that I'm a nerd from the background.
You can tell that you have a real bookcase background and not a backdrop like we do. We actually, the first time we did this, we tried to do this where my bookshelves are, but it was so uncomfortable. It did not work out. So we had to like move tables and do all that. So, fictitious it is.
Yeah.
So, Sara, tell us a little bit more about yourself. I love the wanting to go see live performances. What kind of live performances do you like to go see the best? Like a musical performance, an orchestra, plays? What kind of live performance?
So I'm very open-minded, so like I pretty much go to anything, but I would say my favorite, I definitely love like performing arts, especially musicals. And I would also say that I just love pretty much like going to any concert too.
Yeah.
I feel like music is such a big thing in like my life, like because with even writing, I have playlists and like for chapters and characters. So yeah, I just love the music part of it and like seeing that like in front of you performed live. I just love that too. So
Are your playlists on Spotify?
yes.
Okay,
So
you'll
I
have
do.
to send us the one that goes
Yeah.
with this book because I want to post it with this episode because I
Sure.
always think that is so freaking cool. Because
Yeah.
I'm reading and I'm like, oh, this is what they meant by that song. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just want to ask, because I love musicals too. What is your favorite musical that you've seen live?
It probably was the Phantom of the Opera. I got to see that for the first time, like when I had graduated high school. That was like my gift my mom gave me. We went to New York and we saw it on Broadway.
That's
And it
awesome.
was like my
So
first
cool.
Broadway show, and it was the Phantom. And yeah, it was such a cool experience.
That was my first live show too.
Was it really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Cool.
Okay,
That's
so
awesome.
we're totally going off script. What about the cons? What kind of cons do you go to? Because we actually have gone to 8 supernatural cons between the 3 of us. And it's what our yearly girl trip used to be. So I always want to know what cons people go to.
I started out with just like Denver Comic Con. I always go with my brother, so it's like our thing that we do together.
That's cool.
So
Are
we
you the
started.
younger sister?
I am younger. He is older. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I could tell by the sentiment. I always go with my brother. Like, you do, like my brother comes with me.
Yeah, no, he's the older one. Yeah, so I've always like looked up to him. So yeah, but we go together. We started at Denver. We did New York Comic Con.
Lucky.
And then we started traveling with the like Ace Comic Cons. They tend to have like the bigger celebrities, but those kind of have stopped now. But I exhibit at Comic Cons now, like all the time. So I do New York pretty
Awesome.
much every year. I do Denver every year, but I've done like Chicago and LA. So yeah, I pretty much go wherever. I just love Comic Con.
So after
that's really
we
cool.
become best friends with you at Imaginarium, if you need a assistant at Comic-Con, I will fly, walk, drive, run, and help you sell books.
Yeah,
She's
absolutely.
actually a
Thank you.
great salesperson.
That's true.
Thank you.
Well, moving on, even though this is so fascinating and I could talk about theater because I'm a theater nerd and have a degree in theater, I could talk about that all night, but I'm sure these two wouldn't appreciate that. I'd love to hear about the trilogy that you write, the Empyrean trilogy. Let's hear it.
Sure. Yeah. So the trilogy is essentially about the untold aftermath of the war in heaven and how its lasting consequences have carried over into our modern day. by essentially entrapping a seemingly ordinary boy in a battle between heaven and hell here on Earth. So the story starts in New York City, where the main character Jordan meets Gabriel, and they kind
Archangel
of,
Gabriel.
yes, Archangel Gabriel, face to face. Yep. And so once they meet, they kind of team up and travel around the world because they have to find the other angels. But while they are on their journey, they obviously have to evade Satan and his fallen angels who are after them. And then as the series progresses, Jordan's friends get involved, and you quickly realize that the three of them are more special than you would have first thought. And each book just becomes like this big quest full of action and adventure and angel lore. And that's pretty much the series in a nutshell.
Which do you pull from what you learned in religious studies, like from like what we'd call fact in religious studies, right? In fiction, like how much of a percentage is there in both of those? I mean, I know it's fiction, but you know what I mean? Like, are you
Yeah.
mostly using what you learned in school, or are you taking what you learned and like greatly elaborating on that?
So like what I learned in school absolutely is totally involved in this and like influenced this. Because there's even a lot of artwork that inspired me in certain things of like why I included things or why I named things a certain way. But yeah, so I would say my religious studies, I don't know if there's a percentage. I've never been asked that before, but yeah, it's kind of like what I really like is kind of like taking those like Bible stories. A lot of people call it biblical mythology, but I like taking them and like really spinning them on their head. And I do that a lot in these books, which is why I kind of like, it's more like fiction than fact sometimes. And that's where like the lore comes in a little bit. But like one of the things I started doing in this book, in this series that I kind of want to continue on is like I'll take certain angels that were many people think were like male and I'll turn them into females and
That
Oh,
rocks.
that's awesome.
yeah. So I just like to twist things and play with it. So I'll take the story, but I like to change one thing about it. Kind of like how a lot of people do that with like fairy tales and like the princesses, like they'll like take something and then twist it. But yeah, I like to do that. So
Did you ever watch Supernatural, Sarah?
I haven't.
Okay, so it's deep in
Yes.
angelic mythology.
Yeah, I think it would be right up your alley.
Yeah,
honestly.
because that's why I was like, wait a second, the Archangel Gabriel,
Right.
because he is in the show, and every time, like this is called Our Nerdiest Thing for the record, so we would get together every week and watch while it was on, and anytime they would introduce like a new angel, like I would go look it up and I'd be like, oh, he's gonna be a bad guy, like because you knew like the mythology, right? And so that is something you should definitely invest your time into. It's really good and really fascinating if you know that type of lore already.
Yeah, my brother recommended that show to me because he watched all of it. And it's funny because I started watching like the first season, but I feel like the first season
Season's nothing like the rest.
right. It dealt more with like ghosts though and demons, and I'm
Yeah.
such a scaredy cat when it comes to
Me
that.
too.
So
So,
I
me
like can't
too.
get through it.
Yeah, I actually started watching it in 2005 when it came on. I was super excited because it started as like they were kind of hunting urban legends, right?
Yeah.
And I remember seeing like that Scarecrow episode, and like I watched it by myself and couldn't sleep. And then
That
I
one's
watched that
scary,
Bloody
yeah.
Mary episode and I couldn't sleep after that one. So it was like when I had my second child, I was in the hospital recuperating, and episode 1 of season 4 comes on with Castiel. And I was like, oh, okay, now I like this, right? So
Yeah.
you do need season 1 for like the chemistry between the brothers, but I think we just turned this into a supernatural podcast. on
Yeah.
accident.
A little bit.
Sorry, Sarah. I love whenever people take something like that and they do change it into something really cool and much more fiction, and it helps you even really understand that mythology better than you would have, because I have trouble keeping up with that otherwise.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite kind of things to read, is when you flip something on its head, So I think that's awesome. So we can tell that you're a reader because of your bookshelves behind you. What kinds of things do you like to read when you're not writing?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much like fantasy like all the time out, like everywhere. And I was thinking about this, like I'm pretty open to reading any type of fantasy, but I tend to lean more towards, I think, like that high fantasy, even though I write kind of like contemporary urban fantasy. Um, but and I think lately I've been reading more adult fantasy, but I also read YA fantasy. So, and I feel like when my books are pretty much YA, but I feel like as they continue on, they might become more like new adult. So yeah, I just can't say that there's like one type. It's just fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your like 5-star read from 2023 so far? Do you have
Okay.
one?
I do, because I am reading Akhtar for the first time.
Yeah.
That'll do
Yeah.
it.
Yep, that did it. Yeah.
Which book are you
Say
on?
no more.
I am on the third book. I'm on A Court of Wings and Ruin.
Yeah.
Good one.
If you want to watch something turn into new adult, wait until book 5. It is real spicy.
Damn.
Damn. Yeah. So it's she was like YA, a little bit of smut, and then it was like, holy crap, this is an adult book all of a sudden. So yeah, just be prepared for that. We're not saying it's bad, trust me, but you know, it's a little shocking if you're not ready for it.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, well, I loved it. I'm not saying I didn't
Yeah.
love it. It's just always like to prepare new readers for that.
That is
but
true. It is a jump for sure.
Yeah.
So do you have a book that maybe made you want to be a writer?
I have a book that made me a reader because I struggled with reading a lot when I was growing up. And so the first book that I really just absolutely like adored was Stormbreaker by Anthony Horowitz, and it was like that.
Yeah.
I'm not the the Alex Rider series. Yeah, I absolutely love that. Like that's the book that made me a reader. But I think I really didn't think I was gonna write because I struggled so much at reading, and I like took me forever to actually find a love of reading. So when I did realize that I wanted to write, I think it was more like the lack of books, that because I always loved these angel stories, and there was a lot of books that came out, especially when I was in high school, that had like angels in them or like Nephilim or things like that, and I liked them, but like I just didn't see like the angels the way I always saw them, which was like the main archangels, and I always saw them like as this like team and like brotherhood, and I just wasn't seeing that in the books that I was reading. So I feel like it was more like the lack of books that made me want to write.
Like you wanted to fill a gap that was
Yeah.
there.
I
Yeah.
love that
Yeah,
you
that's
were
really
like,
cool.
you know what? I don't like that no one's doing this, so
I'm
just
gonna
do
do
it.
it.
Yeah. I think that's great.
Yeah,
That's
pretty
awesome.
much.
So we know you love Comic-Cons.
Yeah.
What kind of fandoms are you a part of? Because this is, again, our nerdiest thing, and we love all things fandom, and we're all different. And I mean, we
And
like a lot of the
obsessive.
same things, but we also like different things. So we'd love to hear what kind of fandoms you're a part of.
Sure. Oh gosh. I'm kind of all over the place because I think it started out with a lot of like the superheroes, Marvel and DC. My brother was really big on DC. I kind of like started leading more into Marvel, and now I think I'm falling more into DC, but yeah, so superheroes, like I love Game of Thrones. I came to Harry Potter a little bit later because of the reading
Same.
struggles,
Yeah.
but I do like Harry Potter. I'm like a huge Disney princess fan. Like Star Wars, Stranger Things, Twilight,
All
Avatar.
things that I also love.
I know.
Fire Bear. Yes, like I am kind of all over the place, but yeah, I feel like it's kind of funny because everything I always caught on to it like late, like when it wasn't a thing. Like I always had to like catch up, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like so
You
many
know
people.
what though? There's something really cool about that because then you kind of get to see like the fan art and what other
Yeah.
people have done. I read ACOTAR right when it came out, and
Mhm.
I remember I couldn't envision like the siphons and like what the Bat Boys look like. And I looked at pictures and I found like one Reddit thread of like a sketch, and I was like, all right.
That's not
Like,
doing
yeah, it didn't really. And then like, 8 years later, it was like, boom, they're everywhere. But I struggled because I no one had written those types of characters that I had read
Yeah.
yet. And so it's kind of nice to come in late.
Mhm.
Okay, well, You're done, right? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I was like, I like skip her sometimes, and because I get excited and I want to do my part. Okay. Okay. So we're gonna do the nerdy and dirty speed round, and I'm gonna give you a prompt, and the first thing that comes to your head. Okay. Don't think about it. That's
Okay.
the hardest thing on earth for authors to do. Okay. Number one, your favorite female main character.
Um, that's like, oh, Elizabeth Bennet, like going back to Pride and
Oh,
Prejudice.
Nice.
Yeah, that's what popped in my head first. I'm a big
Cool.
Pride and Prejudice fan. Yeah.
I love that. Okay. What's your most binge-worthy book series?
Ooh. One that I feel like is not a lot of people know about. So there's a book called Angelology by Danielle Trussoni.
Mhm.
I think it's a duology. I think the second book is called Angelopolis, but yeah, that one, they're totally like they're short, but they're also just binge worthy because of the story itself.
Oh, cool. I'll
Really
check
cool,
those
yeah.
out. Okay. What about most binge-worthy TV?
Stranger Things, only because I binged it like last summer, like
Right. Yeah.
all 4 seasons or whatever that was. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Give us a book character you'd get nerdy and dirty with.
Probably Reese, just because he's top of mind right now.
Right. Yeah. He's gonna remain that way. I hate to
Yeah.
break it to you. What's your favorite slow burn book or series?
Ooh, burn book. Um, so this is an oldie but a goodie, but it also was like my first ever like slow burn book, but it was A Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba Bray.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember like that book just totally like changed my life because of like the slow burn. Like I've never read a book like that before, and I was like, oh my gosh. I remember I was in like middle school and it was like such the thing for me.
Right. Yeah. You're like, oh, angst. I feel
Yeah.
this is awesome. Okay. So if you lived in a fantasy world, what superpower would you want to have?
Oof. Maybe flying, like if I had my own wings. I get like really motion sickness. But I feel like if I had control over the flying, like if I had the
Sure.
flying in control, it would totally be better.
Yeah.
So
Okay. That's a
yeah.
good point. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you prefer smut or plot?
Plot.
What is your favorite childhood book?
Probably A to Z Mysteries. Also, probably nobody hardly knows
Oh
that
no,
book.
I work
no,
in a
I-
library.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is the book that like taught me how to read.
Oh,
That
that's
whole series.
awesome.
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
good.
They're great books, and I think they still hold up now. We have kids
Yeah.
that ask for them all the time. So
yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so we're gonna go into fantasy tropes, yay or nay. Fated mates,
Yay,
enemies to lovers,
yay,
forbidden love,
yay.
class differences in terms of like fantasy species,
Oh yeah, yay.
love triangles,
Nay,
secret
Yeah.
or hidden identities,
yay,
social commentary,
yay,
true love's kiss.
yay.
I was gonna say you're a Disney princess. You have
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
say
I would say
that one.
yay.
Lovers on opposite sides of the war,
Yay,
reluctant companions on a quest.
yay.
I was going to say you wrote that, so I hope the answer is yes. It's so funny because that social commentary, people are always like, huh. Because sometimes I'm like reading fantasy. It's like, I'm like, I don't, that's why I'm reading fantasy. Leave
Want to
that out of
escape.
my books. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to see you at Imaginarium really soon, actually, which we are so excited about. We actually met this week to talk through, with the panels and everything. And we're going to be going around and fangirling over all of you. It's going to be so exciting. So what other projects or events do you have coming up in 2023?
So I will be at New York Comic Con. And that's in the fall though.
If you need an assistant, I can drive there. It's 10 hours.
So Imaginarium and New York Comic Con are like the only 2 events I'm doing this year. But what else do I have coming up? So I am writing like a spin-off series. I'm still trying to figure it out because it's essentially still some of the same characters from the Empyrean trilogy, but like continuing on the story. I think really what kind of happened was this trilogy was like Jordan's story, but he has 2 friends in this series, and I feel like they each have their own story. So
Yeah.
gonna continue on with that. But I don't have like any set time of like when it's coming out, because I'm still on this like, I'm not even drafting yet. I'm like outlining, and I'm in that outlining phase of like, I'm like begging my characters like, what do you want? Like what?
Right. Tell
Because
me
I have no idea where we're going.
Now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much what I have kind of going on right now.
Okay, that's
Nice.
awesome. Do you
Yeah.
have anything? Do you have a blah 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 blah? It's late in the day. It's been a weekend. Do you have anything else you're going to be working on writing wise outside of this world?
I want to. I have more of like a, I don't know, mythical creature, werewolf kind of thing brewing.
Ooh, I'm into that.
Yeah, me too.
But I also feel like I have some sort of like slightly feminist story brewing, like matriarchy.
Also into that.
Yeah. So there are things brewing. And I'm sure they'll come out eventually.
Right. Because they always do if you're a writer.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, Sara, what can we do as readers and members of this book community to support you and your work?
Sure. Leaving reviews is always great, whether that's Goodreads or Amazon or Barnes and Noble or wherever. And I know, like, especially as like an indie author, like buying direct, like whenever you can, if that's in person or if an author sells like on their website, like that's always great. But yeah.
Are you finding that a lot of people in your like author circle are switching to mostly? What is wrong with me? I'm so sorry, Sarah.
You're trying to say mainly and mostly.
Mainly
at the same
and
time.
mostly switching to their own websites, because we've been hearing people say like, just come purchase straight from me from here on out, because they can control the inventory and when things get sent. But that also feels like a lot of work.
Yeah.
It is a lot of work because I do send out like a lot of books myself. But I've been doing that now for like 3 years, so I don't mind it. I've kind of gotten used to it. But I feel like sometimes the benefits are just better when it's direct. Because not only can you control like the quality of the books that are going out, but also like in terms of royalties and things like that, you get to like higher royalties when you do it all yourself. But yeah, it's kind of like what you want to take on, because there is a lot that goes into the shipping and everything.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. Because I was not understanding that concept of shifting away from that.
Yeah.
So, Sara, where can our listeners find you online?
I am on Instagram and I am on TikTok, and that's just at Sara M Schaller. And best place also to like find stuff about like books and stuff is my website, and that's also just saramschaller.com. Yeah, fairly simple handles and name.
It's simple
It
like
is.
that.
That's very
Not everybody's is. So at Our Nerdiest Thing, we finish every episode with sharing what our nerdiest thing of the week was, whether that's book related or something else nerdy. So we would love to hear what your nerdiest thing of the week would be.
My nerdiest thing from the past week was I just got a barcode scanner, and I've been kind of going crazy with that.
Nice.
But I know my nerdiest thing for the week coming is that tomorrow is the Met Gala, and I'm just like ready to fangirl about all the fashion and whatnot.
All those outfits. Yes.
Oh my gosh, I love
I like to
the
look at those
couture
too.
art that
Oh,
comes out
yeah.
of those. And
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
come on, Blake Lively, are you going to impress us again?
I
'Cause
know,
Surely
man.
she will.
I would marry her.
She
in a
always,
heartbeat.
she always looks amazing.
She does.
She's always a showstopper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll have to message you tomorrow night on Insta and find out what your favorite was.
And
Well-
you never know who's gonna be there. That's
Right,
the other
yes.
big surprise. Yeah.
Sometimes it's the most random collection of celebrities / non-celebrities, pseudo celebrities.
You're saying we've got a chance.
Yeah, and you never know. You never know with the Met Gala. But well, Sara, this has been super fun. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, this was so much fun.
Thank you. All right, we'll see you soon.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
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 Bye.